Good Thursday morning to you. October 17th, Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. Welcome you into Morning JOX 94.5. And we can't forget about our wonderful listeners. 205-834-9450. You text, you call in. It's Soul Searching Saturday. It's third Saturday in October. I don't know if you've been checking social media, but it feels like both Alabama and Tennessee fans are starting to realize what's at stake this weekend, man. It feels like that, the history that has shown that Alabama has had these last few seasons. Tennessee, they're holding on to that 2022 win pretty high and mighty. They feel like it might be part two of that butt whipping on Saturday, man. These Tennessee fans are starting to get a little rowdy. I like this. You can tell it's a rivalry again.
See, I almost feel the opposite. I feel like for the first time that I can really think of, I almost feel like all the Tennessee fans are, oh, Alabama's going to kill us. We're so bad right now.
Oh,
and
boy.
all the Alabama fans are doing the same thing of, Tennessee might drop 50 on us with how our defense is
psychological warfare.
I was about to say, I feel like both sides are trying to,
play it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man.
I don't want to jinx it.
Right. The closer I get to kick off, the more I'm going back and forth. I'll make sure I give my official prediction tomorrow, but I have a lean on. I think I have a strong lean of where I'm going to go. But when you look at everything across the board, just in the SEC, of course, Auburn taking the trip to Columbia to take on Missouri, South Carolina, Oklahoma set to do battle. And a kind of a get-right situation for both of these teams. Of course, the third Saturday in October, Alabama, Tennessee. Texas A&M hits the road to Starkville, Mississippi to take on Mississippi State. LSU traveling to Arkansas. Ball State taking on Vanderbilt. Georgia, Texas. We know how big that matchup is. Top 5 matchup. And then, of course, Kentucky taking the trip to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. So everybody outside of Vandy's playing a conference game. And I think Ole Miss, after what happened last week against LSU, you need this bye week. You need to just kind of let the kids go out there and play, have a good time, because when you get back, it's time to get back into the grind if you're Lane Kiffin. But I look at just this weekend, it feels like there's a bunch of must-win scenarios. So when we have the conversation about Georgia, how important is it for Georgia to beat Texas this week? Because of, there's no guarantee that an SEC team with 2 losses is still going to find themselves in the college football playoff. Now, it could be who you lost to that kind of helps you out. So if you're Georgia, you're asking Alabama like, hey, I hate to bother y'all, but could y'all go ahead and beat Tennessee so when we get to them, they'll already have 2 losses. We can eliminate them. And if you're Texas, you want to maintain that standard that you're the number 1 team in the nation. And you're kind of sitting pretty. You knock off Georgia, the conversation then becomes, all right, is Texas just going to pretty much just ride this wave all the way to the SEC championship, potential, number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff? And then you got Texas A&M who's still hanging around there. By standings, they are the best team in the SEC right now.
Yeah. And you just mentioned Ole Miss being on a bye week, but if you're Ole Miss, you really need Georgia to win this weekend, because if you want to impress the College Football Playoff Committee, you got really one more chance to do that, and It's against Georgia. And so if Georgia loses this weekend, then Ole Miss, they're really probably done for. So it's just interesting how we're getting to that point in the season where not only are, the individual teams looking at, this might be kind of a must-win game. Now they're starting to look around at other teams and go, hey, we kind of need some help here. Like, we need you to go and take care of business over here. And that's only going to, this is just the beginning of it.
I'm telling you, man.
A month from now,
like
wait.
If that, selection mock show, I guess you would say the other day, with G-Mac and Booger and all those guys kind of gave you a little bit of an appetizer for what to expect. I'm telling you, man, the best thing that you can do is win your ball game every single week. It ain't got to be pretty, but as long as you get a victory and end the game with a victory, and having more points than your opponent, man, I'm telling you, like, you are setting yourself up. But then when you look at just these matchups and thinking about how the first half of the season has really gone. Think about coming into the preseason where we're sitting there talking about Arkansas probably being, middle to the lower tier teams in the SEC. Now they can really play spoiler against LSU. And for LSU, you're peaking at the right time. That win over Ole Miss last week was big, but you can't sleepwalk against this Arkansas unit, because we've seen what Arkansas has been able to do this season with Taylor Green, with Jaquindon Jackson. That defense really starting to mesh well at the right time. And it's just when you look at the conference as a whole, if we ever had a discussion of where, like, why the SEC is the best, just look at the past 3 weeks of the season and you tell me why the SEC is the best. We're looking at, again, we're having a conversation where Vanderbilt has beaten Alabama this season. You say, okay, well, maybe Alabama's slipping up a little bit. Nah, it's Vanderbilt went out there and beat Alabama on a Saturday, and it kind of shook the foundation of everything that we thought about the SEC. But it also, it kind of pushes the button of, this is the reason why it's the best, because we always say you got to make sure that, your chin straps buckle, your cleats are tied on tight when you play in the SEC. And we were worried about Oklahoma and Texas and how they were going to mesh well. Well, now you look at the SEC from top to bottom. It's, if you do not play your A game, you are taking an L no matter who the opponent is on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for a while, I guess maybe an argument against the SEC was that while the best teams were in the SEC, there were years where it was very top heavy, right? Where you might have Georgia, Alabama, and, LSU or somebody that was in the mix that, they were three of the, 10 or 12 best teams in the country. And then everybody else was, they were, they're fine. They're going 6-6, 7-5, whatever. But, they're kind of afterthoughts, I guess, in terms of the national picture of college football. And now, yeah, I mean, I still think you have. I still think the SEC has the best team. I think Texas has clearly shown that they're the best team. Now we'll figure that out, I guess, for sure on Saturday when they have to play Georgia. But I mean, there's no easy week, right? When we were talking about the new scheduling and having, these permanent opponents and how things were going to work out, we're kind of joking like, man, if you're, let's say Tennessee and you pull Vandy as a common opponent, like, you're probably pretty happy about that. And granted, maybe in 3 or 4 years, like, that's going to look better. But right now, like, if you're Georgia, for example, you're probably looking at it as, man, we don't have to play Vanderbilt. Like, we got lucky this year. Like, man, that's sweet. I'll take that. And I mean, again, I brought it up earlier in the week, but you look at a Mississippi State team that has struggled mightily at times this year. I think they're definitely been the worst team in the SEC all year long. But I mean, they're being competitive against Texas and Georgia, like, who a lot of people think are the two best teams in the league right now. So it just, the amount of parity is incredible, and I'm glad that it's here with the 12-team playoff because SEC teams can beat SEC teams, and we're still going to get 3 or 4 teams in the playoff. It's not going to be a situation like we've seen with the Big 12 a number of years where they just have too many teams that are all pretty evenly matched, and so they all just beat up on each other, and there's nobody that really looks all that impressive. So, yeah, I mean, this has been seriously, I know recency bias is a thing, but just being like in the middle of this season right now, I just can't think of another year here recently, at least, where it felt like there was so much just wild stuff happening on a week by week basis.
No, I agree. And again, just think about it. We started off, like, think of just where we were in the offseason leading up to this year, because everything was just going to be so different. And now we're sitting here in the conversation where Mississippi State and Auburn are the only 2 teams in the SEC without a conference win. Like, we kind of expected it with Mississippi State because they're building this thing up due to unforeseen circumstances. But for Auburn to be in this position right now where no matter how you slice it up, yeah, you can feel like, they're just a couple plays here and there that changed everything. But your record is what it is. You're sitting at 2-4, and yet you feel pretty, I'm not gonna say confident, but you actually feel like you can win this game in Columbia against Missouri, because Missouri isn't what we thought they would be. Now, I would say I didn't think Missouri was gonna be that good anyway, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that when we come back on Monday, Auburn went up to Missouri and beat them, because they're still talented enough to do it. It's just you haven't played that full 4-quarter game outside of the 2 wins that you have. And even against New Mexico, it wasn't the prettiest. But I think that for us to see where we are halfway through the season of where the SEC is, and just think about last week, Alabama and South Carolina. Now, we all kind of felt like, all right, Alabama had that loss against Vanderbilt. This is their get-right moment. This game should be over rather quickly. And then you watch the game, and it's, oh boy, there are some glaring issues that wasn't just exposed in the second half of Georgia. It was exposed in that loss to Vanderbilt. And then you started seeing some more things that happen against South Carolina where, oh no, this is just who they are. This is a trend. We're starting to see. But also when you look at where LSU, think about LSU that lost the opening season game to USC, and ever since then they've gotten better. And I think that's where we're starting to see a lot of these teams start to separate themselves these next couple weeks, because we're going to get those top heavy matchups. We're going to see those heavyweight fights week in and week out. And even the middle of the pack teams, they're still within puncher's chance of beating everybody that's ahead of them. And it's not being a surprise that it happens. It's not. This is just how the SEC goes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in general, you just, maybe it's not going to be to this level every single year, but I mean, this is, I think this is going to be somewhat the norm moving forward, just because there's so much. I mean, we've talked about it a lot with the portal and all of that stuff, but there's just so much talent to go around now, and guys that, you know, a handful of years ago are sitting on a bench somewhere in Tuscaloosa or Athens, Georgia. Those people are now going to, the Vanderbilts or the Mississippi States or the, whatever, a group of five schools across the country, and they're going somewhere that they can get playing time. And you're seeing these programs have infusions of talent that, you don't normally see, like, let's be honest. And so, that's where you can have, even for having bumps in the road, but like, you know, Kentucky having a Georgia quarterback. Like, I know Diego Pavia came from New Mexico State, and that's not, the craziest place to transfer from or whatever. But, Vanderbilt went out and got a guy because they thought, okay, well, hey, this guy beat somebody in the SEC last year. Let's go pay him money and see if he can do the same thing for us. And it's working out pretty well. Like, there's just all of these players that normally might be looked at as, oh, that's kind of a, an under the radar guy, or somebody that, like, he's the best kept secret in college football. Well, now somebody's going to come and offer that guy $500,000 to come play for them next year. So you don't really get those kinds of, it just doesn't feel like those players exist as much, because when somebody's really good at the lower levels of college football, somebody at the higher levels is going to pay to bring them over there. And so it's look, I love it. I think it's great. I understand it's frustrating for, honestly, the big dogs of the world in a lot of ways, where you don't have the depth that you used to have, and we've seen that, have a big impact on teams like Alabama and Georgia. But overall, it's just one of those things with the sport. Like, if you're one of those people that, with NIL and the transfer portal, and you're like, I just don't know if I can watch college football anymore, I feel bad for you, man, because you're missing out on a lot of really great stuff right now.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you would have told me at the halfway point of the season that Texas A&M would be the leader in the SEC, one, I would have laughed at you. Two, I would have been like, oh, Mike Elko actually does get it. Like, he's got some dogs down there. And I think the talent level in which Texas A&M has, I mean, and you look at the backstretch of their schedule, it's not the most difficult in the SEC. So you're kind of hoping and praying that one of these teams kind of knocks them off the high horse. But the way that it's looking, everybody's asking all these questions of, if it was going to be tough for Texas and Oklahoma to transition to the SEC. For Texas, not so much. It's, rinse and repeat. This is what we were doing in the Big 12 for a good little bit. And for Oklahoma, it's, well, we lost everybody in our receiving core. We're having a true freshman at quarterback because Jackson Arden has lost it between the ears. Our defense is kind of doing everything they possibly can. But, yeah, it is pretty tough to line up week in and week out and play these top tier teams and still find themselves having success. But there's a lot of season left. This back half of the calendar, the schedule, one, it flies by because now we're week 8 of the season, and it's like, wait a minute, we literally just started a couple days ago. Nah, you got the thick of it now. And I think the backstretch of the season is going to be fun, and it starts this weekend, especially with the third Saturday in October. We'll keep the conversation going here on Morning JOX. Want to hear from you, 205-834-9450. Your text, your calls. Let's just talk about it. The SEC slate this weekend. Let's have some fun. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 619 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. And, of course, you as well. 205-834-9450. Of course, we got to hit some baseball. We do have MLB Championship Series action going on. Last night, how about the LA Dodgers? It's literally it's either the Dodgers blow them out or the Mets kind of squeak on by, because last night the Dodgers knock off the New York Mets 8-0 and take a 2-1 series lead. Shohei Ohtani, he is, for all the excitement that we have in college football, I will say I probably watched maybe 3 innings yesterday. He is must-see baseball. Like, at this point, he has the sport by a stranglehold, and he's pretty damn good. I blame his interpreter for all this nonsense beforehand, because off the field, he has some issues, but it wasn't because of him. Right. My God, his translator taking all that money from him. It ain't missed a beat when he steps into the batter's box, I tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't really care for the Dodgers. I mean, again, it's the same thing, right? Like, I'm a Yankees fan. I don't expect anybody to care that I'm a Yankees fan, because whatever, nobody likes them if you're not a fan. So, Dodgers are a hard team to root for. However, I will say it is cool to finally see him get to play in the postseason, because that was the one thing that's always killed me about Mike Trout is, I mean, he's done it to himself. He decided to stay there in Anaheim, but, being stuck on the Angels for so long, like the best players in baseball, you want to see him in the postseason. Mm-hmm. So getting to see him finally have his chance in the postseason to, kind of take the spotlight there, that has been cool to see him take advantage of the opportunity, but, still it's,
Who would you rather face after y'all beat up on the Guardians to win the series? Who would you rather face, the Mets or the Dodgers?
The Mets.
Gotcha. You don't want that old cross country World Series?
The TV networks do.
Of course, of course.
They would love that. That's about the best World Series you could have from a television standpoint.
I think a Subway Series wouldn't be bad for ratings.
Oh no, I mean that would be great. Yeah. It's been 24 years since we got one of those, so doesn't happen often. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think y'all should handle y'all's business. Y'all first pitch for the Yankees and Guardians, that happens tonight. 4:08 first pitch.
That's one game at a time. Series is 0-0 mentally.
That's where you are.
That's where I hope they are.
Aaron Judge seems like he's locking in at the right time.
Yeah, he remembered how to hit a baseball.
So everything's trending upward, man.
Yeah, things are good things seem to be good in the baseball world. I'll tell you something that's not good, though, Damian, in the college football world. FIU losing to UTEP last night. That's disgusting. It's bad when... Look, I get it. We have to get up early to come up here and do the show, but it's bad when I'm texting with Pat Smith at 5:30 in the morning, and it's about the disdain for what happened last night with UTEP and FIU, especially because if you listen to three-man front, like what... Pat has been very adamant, like, it's free money, right? Like, you just go against UTEP. They're one of the worst teams in all of college. I think they're like 130 out of 134. Literally one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in all of college football. Pitbull bought the naming rights of your stadium, and you lose to one of the worst teams in college football. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Nope, that was a heartbreaker for me, because when you're, when you start off your week on a on a Wednesday night, and you're already 0 for 1, it sets a bad precedent for the rest of the week.
It makes it a longer week when it's like, not only did you
now
lose,
I have to sit here and go, why did I pick? Why am I playing a Wednesday night UTEP football game? What's wrong with me?
And UTEP gets their first win of the season. Yes, they were 0-6 coming into the ball game.
Yeah, good for them, I guess.
And then Florida International goes out there and lays an egg. UTEP wins 30-21. We also had Western Kentucky, who I feel like I've seen on every day of the week, at least this entire football season. It's like, oh yeah, I catch them on a Saturday. Oh, Western Kentucky, it's cool. Then I turn on ESPN or ESPNU on like a Wednesday. Oh, Western Kentucky's playing again. Okay, so they have locked in this. You got 6 days to work with it, and we'll play all 6 days. Like, they have a game on a Tuesday, go ahead and sign Western Kentucky up. But I think I love it because we actually get football every single day. But it is kind of unique to see situations like this again, like Florida International losing to UTEP, and oh boy, it's crazy. Johnny 16 said, "I told y'all yesterday, UTEP, you take every point."
Yeah, well,
We should have.
didn't work out. Yeah, I get. Yeah, for UTEP, you should have. God, those are the ones that just kill you because it's like, man, every thing in the universe is pointing towards, oh yeah, no, this team's terrible. They're gonna get blown out. Like there's no way. It's not even gonna, like FIU's not they're not terrible, right? Like
Right.
they're competitive. Like they've won a few games this year. Like they played Western Kentucky because I'm going through and looking at, all right, who have you played? Because they're 2-4. Like, all right, okay, you're putting up 30 on a Western Kentucky. Like, oh, UTEP's gonna be nothing. Oh, no. UTEP had different plans.
That is true.
Guess El Paso was crazy last night. I don't know.
On a Wednesday night, baby. That's when you know it's going down in College Town. And hey, I mean, for UTEP, this is your first one. Might be your only one, but you got one. You got one. That's all that matters.
I guess.
I mean, did you
Better
have
than losing? But
Did you have high expectations for UTEP? Did you have higher expectations for UTEP or Vandy this year?
well, Vandy, but
It's just crazy, man. It is insane. Somebody texted and asked, Justin texted and asked, Conrad, are you also a Lakers and a Cowboys fan?
I'm not also a Lakers and a Cowboys fan.
Okay, just
The only two teams that I root for in anything are Alabama and the Yankees. That's it. And I know that makes me a bad person, but
okay. Hold up. Jordan just texted and says, Auburn cost me $21,000 3 years ago, and I haven't played a ticket since.
whoa, yeah, we got to get some context on that one. 3 years ago, so
the end of the Harsin era.
Yeah, what? Yeah, we need some context to that. You can't just
like, were they like one missed leg on a parlay?
Yeah, I mean that would make more sense because I'm like, man, if you were betting that kind of money on an Auburn game when Brian Harsin was there, I mean I feel for you, but I also feel like you
got some money to play with.
Hopefully. Yeah, we need some context for that one. You 21,000 on Auburn, it better be a parlay.
I'm telling you, but also there's a hotline you need to call, and it ain't this one. It ain't 205-834-9450. There's another hotline you need to call. But listen, that was 3 years ago. Hopefully you've learned from then. Eric from Sneed, he says Texas, Missouri, Miami, and Notre Dame should be on upset alert this weekend. And that's the thing. I don't think if Georgia beats Texas, I don't necessarily think it's an upset. I mean, I think it's just a top 5 matchup, and it can go either way. But I do think Missouri, based on, the fact they're actually a ranked team, they're ranked 19 in the nation, and Auburn, who's winless in conference play, yes, that would be a major upset. But also, my biggest thing with Missouri, and the more I kind of just watch them, it's how much was that Texas A&M game just an anomaly of Brady Cook, or has he reverted back to old Brady Cook? Because I do think, the frustration that you saw from Luther Burden in that ball game, one, Texas A&M they could have beaten anybody that Saturday.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that y'all were across the field from them. I mean, when you have a punt getting, downed inside of like literally an inch before the goal line, it's just their day. Like there's nothing you could really done that day. But also, I mean, you go over there and beat up on UMass, which is expected. But now you're back in conference play, and you've got this 1-2 combo with the teams in Alabama, with Auburn and Alabama next week. And Auburn, talent-wise, should be able to, have a puncher's chance in this ball game. But if Missouri plays to the capability that they are, if they were to play to their 19th ranked team or their program right now, they should go out there and handle their business. But to see that game open up at, with them being a 7-point favorite, 7.5-point favorite, to now being 4.5, it's okay. Well, are we banking it on the fact of Auburn's finally going to put it together because we at least saw them play well against Georgia? They just ain't got the Jimmies and Joes right now. Or is it Missouri just isn't as talented as they were last season, and the first couple games in the season doesn't really give you that full confidence that they're going to win at home?
Yeah, Missouri's really interesting because, again, I mean, if you just go and look at their schedule and who they've played and who they have left on their schedule, it's pretty easy. And I feel like Missouri is a team where, let's say, hypothetically, all right, let's say they lose to Alabama because they're like a 2-touchdown underdog already in that game next week. Let's say they lose that game. but you beat Auburn, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, and Arkansas, which do I think they're going to go undefeated through that stretch? No, I don't. I think that based on what we've been talking about with the SEC, there is somebody that is good enough to take down Missouri in that stretch. But, if you just look at it that way, I mean, this could be a team that could win 10 games this year and go 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at them and go, okay, your only solid win really is probably a Boston College win early in the season. And that's it, because the other opportunities you had against Alabama and Texas A&M to kind of show something in your own conference, you lost those opportunities. And so it's funny that, we could sit here and talk about it. I mean, they could win 10 games and be left out of the playoff because I just don't know if they're going to be able to claw their way back up in the rankings, because not only do you not have a super impressive win, but they just haven't looked right, right? Like the eye
Mm-hmm.
test, if you watch them, you can just tell, like, all right, this is not the same team that you saw last year. That I don't know. They were just they were firing on all cylinders last year, and I know you brought a lot of guys back, but it's just not the same. And so, but this is a big one for Missouri because this is where your season can kind of go one or two ways, right? And you know what's coming next week, so you don't want to be caught looking ahead to that one on the road. Um, but Auburn's good enough to beat you,
Yep.
no doubt about it, and especially coming off the bye week and maybe having a week to figure some things out and just work on some communication and just the fundamental basic things that Auburn was kind of messing up in the first half of the season. That's really where I'm interested to see from Auburn is this, were you able to take that jump in the bye week and kind of, again, I get it, like the first season, half of the season still happened, but can you kind of view this as a different season in and of itself now for
Mm-hmm.
these next 6 games where it's, we're not going to be fighting for a spot in the college football playoff, but we're fighting for momentum for next season, and we're fighting to show the guys that are on this roster, hey, this can be a winning football program, and you should consider staying here and continuing to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. The more I kind of look at this game, it's all right. If this bye week truly was the reset button for Auburn, this could set well that all right, you can make it to a bowl game and you can salvage, like you can keep the season from going completely off the rails. But if you lose this game, it's going to be hard for me to sit here every single day and feel confident that, like, man, Auburn's going to get, Kentucky. They're going to get Vandy. They may get Texas A&M at home. But like this, it's going to be hard to feel confident in it. And a lot of it rides on what do they actually do as an offensive identity. Are you truly, when Hugh goes up there and says we need to find a way to give 2-7 the ball, does he truly stick to the game plan? That's all I ask. If you're going to say it, by God, let the world see it. I make it a point to just, if you got to line up in the I formation and say, you know what, 27's getting the ball, and somebody on this defense is going to have to stop him for the next 3 hours. Like for the next 4 quarters, you got to find a way to stop 27. Because I do think it makes it easier for everything else to open up if you can establish the run game. It opens up the play action where you're not asking Peyton Thorne to think. Like you're just saying, hey, big dog, you flash it, make the defense bite just half a step. Now your reads are going to be clear. You stand up tall, throw it, be confident in your abilities, and you should be able to get it done. Because Keandre Lambert-Smith, there's everything. If there's anything that, Auburn fans really should be proud of, is the fact that, yes, Cam Coleman may not be the guy just yet, but Keandre Lambert-Smith is the dog. Him and Malcolm Simmons, you can find a way to get them the ball as well in space on the receiving end of things. So I just think that if you have used this bye week to truly buy in and figure things out and saying, you know what, this is what our identity is going to be, then it sets up well for you this weekend in Columbia against the Missouri Tigers. We'll continue the conversation on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:38 here on Morning JOX. JOX 94.5, Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order. And of course, you are wonderful listeners as well. 205-834-9450. You can text, you can call in. We got clarification on Jordan, Conrad. He says, yeah, it was a 17 parlay. Auburn was playing Georgia that weekend, and Georgia was favored by 31.5. I had Auburn covering, and Georgia won by 1 point. Well, won by 32. Last game he needed to hit on his 7-leg parlay. Missed 21 bands off half a point.
Yeah, okay, I feel bad. That's
painful.
That's brutal.
That's painful.
I can understand why you kind of have taken a break from that side of sports for the past few years.
Yeah, that's one that can really set you back a little bit.
That
you could see it, you could taste it.
Did you see the guy for the that had the parlay this week with the Jets? And yeah, he had a $10 bet, and it was, I forgot how many teams in the parlay it was, but all he needed was the Jets to beat the Bills on Monday Night Football, and it would have turned in from a $10 bet into $123,000. And he was gonna cash out. I think he said he got to like 45,000 at halftime, and he was gonna cash out, and then he was like, "No, I'll just write it out."
Man,
didn't work out.
You just got to go with your gut, dog.
Just go ahead. $10 for 45.
Exactly. You've already made your profit.
Yeah, that'll give me some money to play with.
Exactly. Justin texted in. He says Georgia and Alabama are playing every week to stay relevant in this year's playoffs. Did anyone think we'd be saying that in mid-October? No.
No. I mean, we knew one of them was going to have a loss at this point, obviously, because they played each other. But I think we expected that. Yeah, no, didn't expect it to go the way that it did afterwards.
Right. Right. Yeah, we knew somebody was going to have a loss after that game, but we didn't think the winner of that game would also have a loss within the next, week and a half.
Yeah, and I will say again, that was a bad game. Vanderbilt deserved to win. They were the better team, but the good news, I guess, if you're Alabama at least, is if you can start to look better as a team, I don't think that loss is going to look as bad as we thought it was initially.
Yeah, and as long as Vanderbilt keeps winning too, it definitely won't look as bad.
No, they're favored big against Ball State. That shouldn't be a problem this week, but we know who they play next week.
Yeah,
in Nashville, House of Horrors.
Trust me, it's
spooky season. It's October. Ooh.
Who would have thought that? Coach Saban said it wasn't one of the hardest places to play in the SEC, and then what proceeded to happen after that.
Yeah, to be fair, he was still right about the point he made because it was about 75% Alabama fans on that Saturday, and it didn't matter.
Right. They didn't necessarily, storm the field. It was more like just a social gathering out there. They it was like, oh, they still got a lot more field left. I see a lot more green on this field than most times with teams storm the field after a big win like that. But it happens. It doesn't usually happen, but it happens. This is off the beaten path. Cole, not Cole Kublik, but somebody named Cole texts in. He says, Damian, tighten up. Tighten up. Off subject question. Which quarterback in this class would you take for Tennessee in the future? Levis makes my heart hurt. Any of them. You can give me, hell, you can tell Diego Pavia, you ain't even got to go to the draft, big dog. We going to take you in training camp, and just if you can have a pulse of throwing the ball past 15 yards, we'll be good. But no, in all honesty, I probably, I say either Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or Carson Beck. I would be fine with those three. Even Quinn Ewers if we're drafting out of the top 5.
I don't think that's going to be happening.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the mock drafts over the summer, and they're, the Titans were picking like 3rd or 4th, and I was like, oh, did we make a trade with somebody, or did Jacksonville, make a trade, late mid-season trade while we're drafting 4th? They're like, nah, this is kind of where your season is. I refuse to believe it, and then.
Well, no, you thought Will Levis was going to throw for 5,000 yards this year.
I did.
Think he had 90 last week.
Yeah, on 27 pass attempts.
It's a bad.
Just listen. Some jokes just write themselves, man. It is what it is. But hey, let's not talk about that right now. We got a long season left. That's NFL. We're talking about college football weekend, man. It's soul searching Saturday. Let's focus on that. Let's lock back in. Heath texts in and says, what do y'all think will be more talked about if somehow Texas and Texas A&M both play for an SEC championship, or that Texas would make one before A&M if they don't make it?
Ooh, I definitely think if they both made it, that would be a huge deal. But yes, it would be funny that Texas could come in and make the conference title game in their first year, and Texas A&M hasn't made it yet. I mean, it's also funny that Missouri came in and went back-to-back years, and
Yeah.
Texas A&M still hasn't gone. So, but no, I mean, if you had, because I mean, if that scenario were to play out, I mean, you're getting that game 2 weeks in a row
Yeah.
because that's the last game of the regular season for both of them, and then you'd get them again in Atlanta. So that would be something.
It would be. Steven texts in and says, "Good morning, fellas. Just want to say go Tigers." Listen, man, it's a battle for the boot this weekend. Y'all take that trip up to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm telling you, man, Arkansas this season has kind of just grown on me week to week. I already like Sam Pittman, love Sam Pittman. I could see why players play for him, but then you're watching how they operate, and Taylor Green's, for every bad play he has, he doesn't just make a good one. He'll make a great one out of nowhere. And it's like, man, if he could put that all together, game in and game out, sweet Jesus,
Yeah.
Arkansas could be rolling. Because I think their defense
is good.
Yeah, and they were like the Achilles heel for him last year. And I think that Tennessee game is what really is like, okay, they're legit. They are legit. I mean, they made Nico look human. And Tennessee really hasn't recovered. I'm not going to say hasn't recovered, but they still haven't been clicking like they have been. They're having an execution problem. Like, it's not really necessarily a personnel issue, but Greg brought up a great point yesterday on Mac and Cube that with everything that Tennessee offensively usually has, there's no Jalen Hyatt out there. There's not, I mean, Square White is good. Brew McCoy is good. Brazzell, they're good, but it's kind of the situation that Alabama had when Bryce Young was at quarterback.
Nobody's going to take over the game.
Right. They don't have a solid, just number one guy. Maybe Dante Thornton, by size, he could be, but for the way that offense runs, he doesn't really, it's very difficult for him to just take it over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I kind of have some question marks because, all right, they're solid guys that play within the system well, but maybe Tennessee should probably lean a little bit more on what they have in the backfield. Kind of the same with Auburn. How about you just run the ball with Dylan Sampson until he gets tired? You put Bishop in as a nice little spell back and figure it out from that point forward. Because I do think any quarterback could tell you, like, if we're running the ball, it makes it a lot easier for me because once we flash that play action, boom, everything just kind of opens up. But
it's the same thing with Alabama.
Yeah. And in Alabama, it's almost like they choose not to even run it anymore. And
yeah, that one just doesn't.
It's like, dog, you got a two-headed monster back there. Like, you got two of the best running backs in the conference. I think you can find a way to give them a little bit more and make their impact a little bit more felt week in and week out. You can.
Yeah, dude, Jam's averaging like 7 yards a carry.
And
he's averaging 8 carries a game. Like,
yeah, that's
come on.
Come on. Come on, dog. Like, what are we doing? But maybe that's just the way the SEC is now, or maybe college football as a whole. Like for every Ashton Jency out there in the world, I mean, who can carry the thing 7 times and get you, 2,000 yards. It's like these coaches are choosing not, like, I understand everybody has this flavor of RPO, but sometimes you just need to say, we're running inside zone here, and it's not a read. It's, y'all know exactly what the inside zone steps are. Go do it, and whoever's back there running back, make sure you got your inhaler ready, big dog, because you're going to be toting it. Ask South Carolina with Rocket Sanders. It ain't no, let's read it a little bit. It's, let's hand this thing to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And see what he can do. And I think that for a lot of these teams, that sometimes you just need to do that. Don't overthink it so much. Like, let's not call the RPO. Let's just call the R. Let's just call the run. We'll continue with your text message, your conversations, your calls as well. 205-834-9450 is wrap it up here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. NBA Street Volume 2. I remember this. It don't miss. It don't miss. It's a great beat. It's just catchy. It mesmerizes you. You get locked in.
Great song.
It is indeed. Welcome back in the morning. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order. And, of course, you are wonderful listeners as well. 205-834-9450. We appreciate y'all texting in this morning. Alex doubles down. He says, yeah, Arkansas's defensive coordinator has done an amazing job this year. You know where he played, right? He's an Auburn guy. Travis Williams. Or damn.
He's a
Tiger.
I was about to say, if you saw the video of him in I guess it was fall camp?
Yeah.
Yeah, you knew oh,
he different.
might be a little bit of juice over there.
Yeah, he's the one that does the Tiger Walk song. And I remember, yeah, that's Coach T Will, baby. You got some dogs out there, man. They're playing a wonderful, they are playing great football down there in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So LSU, man, Garrett Nussmeier, boy, you better don't serve him up one, man. I'm telling you.
See, this is one of those games where we were talking about earlier with like Texas and Georgia and how it's like, if Georgia wins, I don't really know if that's an upset. And I know this one's different because LSU's highly ranked and Arkansas is unranked. See, this is one of those games where I understand it's an upset if Arkansas wins, but like I don't really view it as much as an upset. And maybe that's just because my gut is kind of leaning one way on this game, and it's a rivalry game, and
right,
it's in Fayetteville, and
it's
coming off an overtime emotional win for LSU.
Right, like I don't think if Arkansas wins, they storm the field. Like I think it's just kind of I think we better than y'all. Like,
yeah, I think they're just all right. Yeah,
yeah, like appreciate it. Like we'll take that boot. We'll take that back to Coach Pittman's office, and we'll make sure that y'all see it, and we'll do this thing again next year. But I agree, man. I just think that that game right there is. I'm not going to say under the radar, but it's one of those.
It's going to be a good one.
Don't be surprised.
No.
Don't be surprised if we're here Monday and saying Arkansas knocked off LSU and Brian Kelly hot seat conversation starts again. And it's like, oh, man, here we go. Like, just, it's only the second loss.
No, yeah, but.
It's a program turner.
I was about to say, that's a loss
turner. With
Alabama and Texas A&M left on your schedule, which I guess gives you some ground to make up, but. See, and that's where it's just, things can just get messy. Because, seriously, just think about, just the Texas and Georgia game. If Georgia wins that game, how do you figure out the pecking order in the SEC? Because, okay, so Georgia just beat the best team, but Alabama beat Georgia a couple of weeks ago. Texas has the freshest loss. It's like, how do you really decipher kind of how that looks? And maybe, it helps if, maybe Alabama looks good on Saturday and you feel more confident about, oh, maybe they are the best team in the or one of the better teams. But, yeah, it's just like that one game can just kind of muck everything up. And we go from, okay, well, the league's good, but Texas has kind of, separated themselves a little bit to now I don't know what to make of those three teams on top of, if you have a one-loss Texas A&M or a one-loss LSU or whatever, it's going to get interesting.
It is, man. Luke from Highlands, he texts in and says, Damian, well said about not overcomplicating the plays. It seems like teams are trying to do too much in their play calls. Just run the ball between the big uglies. Roll Tide. Simple as that, baby. Like, don't overthink it, man.
Sometimes it really is that simple.
It really is. Like, we still have dive left and dive right in our playbook. Let's dust that thing off and call it one time.
No, dude, let's run a jet sweep. Those are way more fun.
I'm telling you, man. Drake says, does Florida make a bowl game?
No.
Probably not.
No.
I do think they win this weekend, though. I do think that. Tomorrow's Final Score Friday. Lock in, baby. McElroy and Kulik in the morning. Those guys are next.